Greetings, fellow mathematicians! We're going to take a look at a really good problem on applying the product rule. Now, in an earlier video, which I have linked down below in the description, we went through some tips on applying the product rule. So if you haven't checked that out yet, definitely go ahead and do that. One of the tips was to rewrite before you differentiate. Now, we have the function given here written as a product, so the original version, we would use the product rule. Now, if you take your time to rewrite that, which you can do that by multiplying or foiling that out, you get to here. And notice, by multiplying this out or rewriting it, you still have a product, x times e to the x. So you would still be using the product rule. The other problem with this is you're going to get e to the x times e to the x, which you add the exponents there because you're multiplying the same base, and that will come out to give e to the 2x. And the easiest way to differentiate e to the 2x is with the chain rule. Now, at this point in your Calculus 1 course, you might not have learned about the chain rule. Some of you might have already known about that though, but we're not going to use that here. So notice, the original function, you'd be using the product rule, and by rewriting, you're still applying the product rule, but also the chain rule. So always ask yourself, before you rewrite, before calculating derivatives, ask yourself the following questions to see if this would actually be beneficial. By rewriting, does this allow you to avoid using the product and or quotient rules? And here, you can see by rewriting it, the answer is no. You still end up using the product rule and also the chain rule. So for this problem, let's not multiply this out, and let's just use the original version. This is a tip that you want to keep in mind. You sometimes want to apply it, but sometimes you don't. And the only way to really get a sense for that is to go through a lot of problems. So here, we're just going to leave it as is and apply the product rule to that. So let's identify our pieces. We'll call that F. And we'll call that G. And we're going to go through divide and conquer. So let's write down f of x. That's x plus e to the x. And g of x will be 1 minus e to the x. From here, we're going to calculate f prime and g prime. And that's really straightforward. The derivative of x is 1, and the derivative of e to the x is itself. And just be careful when you're differentiating g of x to find g prime. The first part, 1, is a constant. That differentiates to 0. When we differentiate e to the x, we get itself, but notice there's a negative in front, a constant multiple of -1. So g prime here works out to be 0 minus e to the x, which you can write as negative e to the x. So just be careful of that. All right, now that's really the work for the question. We just need to combine all the pieces back together with the product rule. All right, so our function here was h of x. The derivative, we'll write that as h prime. And we'll just take our time to put the pieces together correctly. First term we're going to have from the product rule is f prime times g, 1 plus e to the x, times 1 minus e to the x. All right, and the product rule, we get a plus, and the other term is f, x plus e to the x, times g prime, where g prime is negative e to the x. All right, now some of you might be comfortable combining some of the steps together and already seeing that that factor of -1, that'll change the sign there, but if you didn't see that, let's take our time. So let's just keep these terms the same for right now. So 1 plus e to the x times 1 minus e to the x. And I'm just going to slowly simplify this. I don't really need these parentheses because there's just a single term in there. That negative, I'm going to move it out front and change that sign. So we'll write this as minus x plus e to the x. And we're going to have that factor of e to the x still on the outside there. All right, now from here, by looking ahead, you might be able to see by distributing, you might have some exponential terms cancel out or combine together. So let's go ahead and expand this, and we'll also distribute the e to the x into the parentheses. That minus will change all the signs of the terms thereafter. So let's take our time. We're going to FOIL this part out. We're going to get 1. We'll get minus e to the x. Inner terms will give positive e to the x or plus e to the x. And just be careful with your last terms. You'll get minus, and then e to the x times e to the x. That's e to the 2x. So we get minus e to the 2x. And just be careful here. We're going to have a minus, and we're going to distribute that e to the x into the parentheses. So we'll get minus x e to the x. And then we'll get another minus, but now e to the x times e to the x, e to the 2x. All right, and now we just check if there's any terms that we can cancel or combine together. And it's nice because here, these exponential terms cancel out. Negative e to the x plus e to the x, those cancel or subtract out. And just be careful with your signs. You do have some like terms here, e to the 2x, but these don't cancel, but rather combine together as negative 2 times e to the 2x. So let's just write down what's left. We have 1. We have minus x e to the x. And then your like terms here, negative e to the 2x and negative e to the 2x, they combine together to negative 2 e to the 2x. And that is our derivative, h prime of x. All right, and notice we did multiply out, but that was after we calculated a derivative here. Had we multiplied out in the beginning, we would still have been using the product rule, and another rule, which we have yet to learn about, would be the chain rule. So here, the work was just straightforward, keeping it factored and not rewriting before you differentiate. Hopefully that's not confusing. This is not a tip or rule that you always want to follow. Always try to ask yourself that. By rewriting, does that allow you to avoid using other differentiation rules? And again, here, by rewriting it, you still end up using the product rule. All right, so when you approach problems in homework, on quizzes, tests, and exams, ask yourself that, and you'll be able to solve the problems in the simplest way possible. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, support the channel, like and subscribe.